recently there's been a lot of like blame called whiteness, colonialism, apartheid, and it's nonsense. It's ANC Youth League and MK propaganda and EFF propaganda. The ANC doesn't want to take responsibility for the last 10 years of wrecking this country. So what do? They blame whiteness, apartheid, colonialism. That stuff's gone. It's gone.
Nonchalant.
But
the DA is saying, but look at Cape Town. And they show Cape Town with these rich people that have private security and high walls and send their kids to private schools. I can't buy into that.
Sorry, Penn, you're extrapolating a confused, you're talking about socialism, capitalism, and all of a sudden you're talking about DA and Diepkloof. I'm sorry, that you extrapolate one confusing message as a fact, like NOTA does, by the way.
I'm too scared to hand over our SOEs to private capital because I don't trust them either. If you look at their track record in this country, they complain about government, but they haven't given us proof of concept on how they do better. It's almost like the DA.
Can I stop you here?
Go for it.
So you're wrong on 50% of what you say. You really are. You're mixing and confusing things, much as I love you. South African Airways, by the way, all the state-owned enterprises were run efficiently, effectively, and in most cases profitably under the apartheid government.
You're right.
I mean, they had competent,
but there's a disclaimer there.
Let's just move on.
No, we can't. We can't. No,
I didn't stop you.
You did.
I didn't stop you 10 times when you were on
No, I'm not
Rampage,
stopping you 10 times.
And I could have, because you were a lot of
you stopped me once. You never let me finish. It's okay. I'm just saying you have to add the disclaimer. The apartheid government was very efficient. I will agree with you. But you have to add the disclaimer that it was at the expense of the majority of the people. Otherwise, it becomes a horrible example.
Not true.
Democracy is great, free market capitalism, but it's at the expense of those that are ignorant. And in a country where people are undereducated, not educated, it's very easy to exploit them because they don't understand these things. So it's like willing buyer, willing seller, but you don't know that your land is worth 50 million.
Cadre deployment destroyed the state-owned enterprises, and socialism and central control destroyed the state-owned enterprise. The ANC cannot run state-owned enterprises, and Penn's right. It's perfect for looting. Example in aviation.
Sorry, Rob. What did the Guptas
The Guptas stole R1 trillion
from SAA?
From all the state-owned enterprises.
No, I'm just saying because you're lying, so we need to be very careful. What did the Guptas steal from SAA?
Oh, let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
Guys, this part of this discussion is really interesting for me. You know, this is one of the things Prince Mashele actually argued, that for South Africa to go forward, the blacks in South Africa have to feel free enough to criticize the ideas coming from the white South Africans, and the white South Africans must also feel free enough to challenge some of the historically based argumentations of many blacks, and regardless of the clashes that erupt out of that process. It is a necessity or a necessary part of this whole healing process as a nation for South Africa to find really rich, sustainable unity and social cohesion. So in this video here, we see Penway the Black Pen telling Rob Hersov to his face that he's lying. And this is a clash that actually was based on, argumentations about capitalism and socialism and which one will really be more beneficial to South Africa. Rob Hersov really is criticizing Penway the Black Pen for his ideas and his views on and his criticism for capitalism, arguing that some of the happiest countries in the world, especially in terms of happiness index, have actually come from countries that embrace capitalism. Probably not to the extremes, but that actually had a grounding in capitalism. While Penway the Black Pen was actually going back and forth arguing that, he doesn't really see the strength in capitalism in the fact that a few people in the private part of the private capital would own most government or state resources and all of that, and then or control most of these government state resources and all of that. And at the end of the day, it was kind of like what was the reason or the basis for the oppression of many of the poor in South Africa. And really interesting arguments. And what was really interesting for me was this whole clash between both of them right there on in front of DJ Spoo. And it's actually, for me, really appreciated because I like the fact that these kind of things are really seen in the open with love, right? There's argument between blacks, whites, Indians, and coloreds, regardless of the bitter history between them, but with love, they can come together, fight, make up, whatever. But these arguments have to continuously keep on going on. There has to be an open space for continuous dialogue for this kind of bitter issues, regardless of how bitter they are, so that we can be able to start feeling comfortable to discuss about these issues and then lead. I believe this is what would lead probably at some point to a place where we can begin the sustainable search for unity and reach social cohesion in South Africa. Let's quickly listen to this discussion between Penwa the Black Pen and Rob Hersov, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Free market capitalism.
Free market capitalism. And you've got a lot of platforms that you've shared, ways and ideas that you think can change this country. And right now, there's a lot of division that is happening on the internet, especially with Elon Musk and Trump. And I'd like for us to get into that convo later.
So
There's
a lot of division in South Africa right now,
Yeah.
but it's created by propaganda. You know, South Africans are, in the main, conservative, Christian, church-going, good people that want a better life for their family. And South Africans are capitalists. I mean, you're a capitalist. Your business is pure capitalism. Your business is capitalism. We are natural capitalists. There's no one more capitalist than a spaza shop owner and a South African taxi driver. You know, they're going down the outside lane to get back to pick up more people as quickly as possible. It's about building businesses, making money, and getting the government out of the way. And recently, there's been a lot of blame called whiteness, colonialism, apartheid, and it's nonsense. It's ANC Youth League and MK propaganda and EFF propaganda. The ANC doesn't want to take responsibility for the last 10 years of wrecking this country. So what do? They blame whiteness, apartheid, colonialism. That stuff's gone. It's gone.
Nonchalant.
But we should be working together to fix this country. And it's easier than you think. That we just need, let's call it the GNU, okay? I was going to say, ANC,
As an
to
example,
put their hand up and say, we need less government, not more government. We can just sell the state-owned enterprises, get rid of them. They're just costing money. And let's let entrepreneurs like Mzakes free to build businesses. Let's take the red tape out of the way, the regulation out of the way. It's just government is getting in the way of fixing this country.
Is it a good thing to sell state-owned enterprises, Mr. Penyo?
There's not an easy answer to that. I just wanted to read the definition of free market capitalism for people that may not know. It's an economic system, this is very important, where private businesses own and control the factors of production with minimal government intervention, as Rob said, and where prices, production, and labor are determined by the forces of supply and demand. One of the reasons I have an issue with free market capitalism is because it's in the same WhatsApp group as democracy. It sounds very nice for people that are knowledgeable to promote it. Democracy is great, free market capitalism, but it's at the expense of those that are ignorant. And in a country where people are undereducated, not educated, it's very easy to exploit them because they don't understand these things. So it's like willing buyer, willing seller, but you don't know that your land is worth 50 million. You're just happy to get 10 cows for your land. But because I know that, I'm like, but it was a fair deal. So I struggle with free market capitalism and democracy for those reasons. Capitalism versus socialism, and I know this is a debate, but communism has never really existed in the world, at least with the end goal of saying no government. The whole idea of communism is community. The people own everything. What we've seen in China, the Soviet Union, is aggressive socialism with authoritarianism, where you've got a dictator who claims he's working for the people, ends up having a lot of power and sometimes bullying people and messing things up. The big fight is between capitalism and socialism. The problem with socialism that we have in the world today is those that claim to support socialism rely on capitalists to fund whatever projects that they have. If our state-owned enterprises in this country, SAA, the SABC, Transnet, Eskom, when we still had it, ISCO and the like, the ports, if they were running profitably and they were making money and government's like, we don't even need to tax you guys. Our SOEs are making such good money. SABCs throughout Africa, we're expanding overseas. Eskom is supplying the whole of Africa. We've gone nuclear and we wouldn't need to tax ordinary people because government would be running the socialist agenda so well. The problem is specifically our government and many others. They use socialism to, number one, overhire unnecessarily bloated institutions. They use socialism to loot the institutions because it's one thing to say this is a state-owned enterprise. It's another thing to realize the Eskom the people making the money are the private companies that are suppliers, which are capitalists, but you call it a socialist enterprise. And then after they've failed and they've made losses, then they want to tax the capitalists to come and bail them out, which is why capitalists get upset, and I understand. But should we be selling the SOEs? Ideally, no. But not under governments like ours. But in the same breath, I'm too scared to hand over our SOEs to private capital because I don't trust them either. If you look at their track record in this country, they complain about government, but they haven't given us proof of concept on how they do better. It's almost like the DA.
Can I stop you here?
Go for it.
So you're wrong on 50% of what you say. You really are. You're mixing and confusing things, much as I love you. Let's take aviation as the best example of all. South African Airways, by the way, all the state-owned enterprises were run efficiently, effectively, and in most cases profitably under the apartheid government.
You're right.
I mean, they had competent,
but there's a disclaimer there.
Let's just move on.
No, we can't. We can't. No, I
didn't stop you.
You did.
I didn't stop you 10 times when you were on
No, I'm not stopping you 10 times.
And I could have, because you were a lot of
you stopped me once. You never let me finish. It's okay. I'm just saying you have to add the disclaimer. The apartheid government was very efficient. I will agree with you. But you have to add the disclaimer that it was at the expense of the majority of the people. Otherwise, it becomes a horrible example.
Not true. The ports operated for all of South Africa. The airports for those who could fly for all of South Africa, but also for cargo. The railways for all of South Africa. Transport for all of South Africa. Denel, which sold armaments, whether you agree with it or not, the money came back to South Africa, however it was used. They were run efficiently. Cadre deployment destroyed the state-owned enterprises, and socialism and central control destroyed the state-owned enterprise. The ANC cannot run state-owned enterprises, and Penn's right. It's perfect for looting. But let's take aviation. I want to do two examples. One is Ethiopia. Ethiopia set up Ethiopian Airlines. The government, it's government-owned. Ethiopian Airlines is government-owned. They hired initially an American management team who put a business plan together, and they gave Ethiopian Airlines a lot of money and said, build the best airline in Africa, but make it profitable. And the profits stay within Ethiopian Airlines. They're used to improve the planes, improve the airports, improve the routes. Ethiopian is now a profitable, 100% state-owned airline. A huge success. And we could have and should have done that with South African Airways if the ANC hadn't destroyed it and stolen it to death. I mean, Dudu Mayeni as chairman. What does she know about aviation? She was there to let the Guptas steal. Example number one, Ethiopian Airlines, state-owned enterprise, successful. That could have and should have been South African Airways.
Sorry, what did the Guptas steal from SAA?
The Guptas stole from everyone.
No, from SAA.
Dudu Mayeni was there to let people steal.
Yeah, what did the Guptas steal?
Second example in aviation.
Sorry, Rob. What did the Guptas steal?
The Guptas stole R1 trillion.
From SAA?
From all the state-owned entities.
No, I'm just saying because you're lying, so we need to be very careful. What did the Guptas steal from SAA?
Let me get back to you on that. The Guptas stole this country blind, thanks to Jacob Zuma, the buddy you love.
You do know that at SAA, only 3% of the suppliers were black. So when you speak about looting,
here's how they looted. Do you want to hear how they looted?
And editor, we've got time. We've got time.
You know how they looted? Every plane they bought, particularly from the French, there was a commission, and the commission would go to Lutuli House. That's how they stole. But let me give you the second example. We're talking about state-owned enterprises, okay? South African Airways was bankrupted by the ANC. Incompetence, stealing, and incompetent cadres like Dudu Mayeni being put in place. They overhired, like you said, and they destroyed the airline, bankrupted it. It's got a 50 or 100 billion debt. It's finished. It's flying again. And they say it's profitable. It's profitable on 25 planes. What happened was, as South African Airways collapsed, Airlink, FlySafair, Semair stepped into the breach. And for those people that fly, we're flying happily. We don't need South African Airways. We don't need a state-owned enterprise. So you don't trust capitalists. But what has happened is the private companies that pay tax to the government have stepped into the breach. The same thing can happen. We can have privatization by default in water, sewage, electricity, and everything else. We don't need morons in Pretoria, whether they're Nats or ANC, making decisions on our behalf. And that's the difference between central control, which Penn seems to love and doesn't work, versus the free market, which is you, and you making all the decisions. That's the difference. And Penn, your distrust of capitalism is, I don't know where this comes from.
I don't support central government.
You do support central
I
government.
don't.
Well, then what do you support? I mean, it's very confused,
So before you interrupted me, I was trying to explain
Before you interrupted me.
I was trying to explain the two sides, the capitalism and the socialism, and why in the current climate we have a problem, at least in South Africa. We have no choice for now but to marry the two. And even with both of them, if you don't fix the leadership, it doesn't work.
Correct.
You can go capitalist. Mzek's Kitchen can be owned by yourself, private ownership, profit maximization, all those things. But if you're a bad leader, if you're incompetent, if you're greedy, if you exploit your laborers and all those things, chances are it's not going to survive in the long run. If government comes and takes over Mzek's Kitchen and it becomes an SOE, but they're looting it, there's never stock and the like, it's the same. The conclusion I wanted to get to was you can have no government, you can have only government. At the end of the day, if you've got the wrong people on either side, whatever ism you want to give it almost doesn't matter.
Correct.
And in my opinion, I have not seen in this country that the capitalists have proven such a great case study that even the average person is like, socialism actually doesn't work.
Sorry.
All we hear, unfortunately, is the failures of socialism and the ANC. That's apparent. And many of us agree with it. But it's being said by people that are not proving a case study. And I was using the example of the DA. The DA is saying, but look at Cape Town. And very correctly, Gayton McKenzie at BizNews was saying, prove your concept eKukulethu, eKhayelitsha, Kwalanga, Enyang, ePhilippi, Ponte Yevel, Mitchell's Plain. Prove it there so that all of us can be like, Ntwana, look at what the DA is doing there. Phela, the Western Cape Deep Kloof is Spruit View. I also want to live like that. But until they do that and they show Cape Town with these rich people that have private security and high walls and send their kids to private schools, I can't buy into that.
But sorry, Penn, you're extrapolating a confused, you're talking about socialism, capitalism, and all of a sudden you're talking about DA and Deep Kloof. I'm sorry, that you extrapolate one confusing message as a fact, like NOTA does, by the way, into something that's completely disconnected to try and prove a point.
Okay.
You're actually missing the point. Let's stick to socialism, capitalism.
That's okay.
You say capitalism hasn't proved itself. Look at the capitalist countries in the world and look at the happiness index and look at the richest countries as a percentage of GDP. Okay? GDP growth, happiness index, every single one of the top 20 countries in the happiness index, it's an official index, are capitalist. Every single one. And you say capitalism doesn't work. I mean, sometimes, Penn,
So I must read that article and just agree.
It's the fact. This
According
is the
to an
problem
article.
between.
No, I'm just asking.
No, the happiness index is a UN backed report, and it looks at education, health, every single factor, including GDP growth, every single factor. Every single one of those countries is capitalist. And you say capitalism doesn't work.
The UN works with organizations that Donald Trump that you like doesn't
It's
like.
not written by the UN. It's an independent research that everybody endorses. Look it up. Look up happiness index. If I sent it to you, you wouldn't read it. I've sent you books begging you to read them. You won't read them. There's some form of indoctrination that you cannot pass beyond. And this is where we end up fighting.
It's okay.
I mean, I just wish you would read the one book that I keep sending and begging you to read. It's called Freedom. How we created it and why it's so important. And you refuse to. There are 3 pages on capitalism in there. I've given you a copy. Why won't you read it?
Hi, Kulman.